Today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped. On August 16, 1977, Elvis Presley passed away at the age of 42, and millions of people all over the world went into mourning. But almost as soon as the news broke, rumors started that he faked his death and went into hiding. On today's episode of Strange and Unusual Tales, we're going to dive into the history of this conspiracy theory and try to separate fact from fiction in order to answer the question, did Elvis Presley really die? But before we get into all the details, if you like these kinds of videos, take a second and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's a small thing that makes a big difference. All right, with all that said, let's get into it.
Did Elvis Presley really pass away?
I saw Elvis Presley at Winesburg Inn in Clyde, Ohio.
The search is over, ladies and gentlemen. Elvis lives and we're going to prove it.
Now, the gist of the Elvis is Alive conspiracy theory claims that in December of 1970, President Nixon swore in Elvis as a federal agent at large. Elvis then spent the following years working undercover with the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and through this appointment, he eventually gave up information to the FBI that led to the takedown of an international crime syndicate with ties to the mafia. In retribution, the mob put a hit on him, and Elvis was placed into the witness protection program. His death was fabricated by the U.S. Department of Justice using a wax dummy in the open casket funeral. Since going into hiding, Elvis has remained in contact with his family and has been seen in the public on rare occasions. In the early 90s, believers of the theory thought that he would return to the public spotlight within the next few years. This, of course, has yet to happen. Now, the bulk of this theory comes from three key components: his real-life involvement with the U.S. government, the suspicious circumstances surrounding his death, and lastly, the various sightings of Elvis over the years. Let's start with his connection to the U.S. government. By 1970, Elvis had become an avid fan of law enforcement and started to acquire a large collection of police badges, often getting one from every city he performed in. Some of these even carried honorary titles, such as Captain Reserve with the Memphis PD. And this is important because when he wrote a letter to President Nixon in December of 1970, I think he really just wanted a badge to add to his collection. But in his letter, Elvis expressed interest in becoming what he called a federal agent at large, which is something he either heard or made up because it doesn't really exist. He went on to say that he was concerned by what he saw as a decline in America with rampant drug use and communist ideas. He felt that he could be most useful in getting an anti-drug message to the youth because, and I quote, "the drug culture, the hippie elements, the SDS, Black Panthers, etc. do not consider me as their enemy, or as they call it, the establishment." He later added, "I'm right in the middle of the whole thing where I can and will do the most good." Also, the fact that he asked not to be given a title or an appointed position, I think led some people to believe he became an undercover agent. Anyway, after dropping off the letter in the morning of December 21st, 1970, a meeting was scheduled later that same day between Elvis and Nixon at the White House. During the course of their conversation, Elvis showed off a few of his police badges and then reiterated his knowledge of drug culture and communist brainwashing techniques. He expressed his desire to serve his country and help out with the drug problem any way he could. Nixon agreed, and towards the end of the meeting, Elvis asked for a Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs badge to add to his collection. Nixon asked his aide to look into it, and Elvis departed. Later that day, he was appointed as a special assistant to the BNDD and received his badge, but that's as far as it went. It was an honorary position with no real authority. He wasn't sworn in, nor did he become an undercover agent. Alright, let's fast forward a bit to May of 1976. Elvis was looking to sell his Jetstar airplane. At this point, he had several private planes, and he needed to let this one go because it wasn't even airworthy. His father, Vernon, who handled all of Elvis's finances, was tasked with finding a buyer. And through his search, he met with a man named Frederick Pro, who encouraged Vernon to agree to a very complicated leasing arrangement with his company, World Aircraft Exchange. Unknown to Vernon was that Frederick was actually a con man and a member of a criminal ring with ties to the mob. By the spring of '77, Frederick and his partners managed to siphon off more than $1 million from the Presley estate. Now, at the same time, the FBI were conducting an undercover investigation into this group. By mid-August of 1977, they were ready to bring their case to a grand jury, and by pure coincidence, Elvis died around the same time. So you can kind of see how people got the idea that Elvis ratted on these guys. But here's the thing, the case really didn't involve Elvis at all. He was purely a victim in the whole thing, and even the FBI agents involved with the case say that Elvis had no idea their investigation was going on before he died. Which brings us to the fact that we really don't know what killed Elvis. We know that his girlfriend found him unresponsive on the floor of the upstairs bathroom, and even though he was officially pronounced dead at 3:30 p.m., he most likely passed away between the hours of 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. that morning. An autopsy was performed at 7 p.m. the same day, but the report was never publicly released, and even stranger, the Memphis Medical Examiner announced that the official cause of death was a heart attack, but this was in the afternoon, way before the autopsy. The pathologist performing the autopsy thought this was possible, but also suggested that he could have died from polypharmacy since he had at least 8 prescription drugs in his system at the time of his death. In the years since, several medical experts have looked at the report, but none of them have come to the same conclusion, which leads some believers to claim that this is evidence of a cover-up. But determining a cause of death isn't an exact science, and Elvis wasn't in the best shape. We know that at the time of his death, he was suffering from diabetes, glaucoma, an irregular heartbeat, high blood pressure, liver damage, and constipation, the last of which was most likely caused from all the drugs he was taking. This fact alone led at least one medical expert to conclude his heart stopped when he was straining too hard on the toilet, as those who saw him lying face down on the bathroom floor say it looked like he slumped forward from the toilet. Believers will also point to the fact that the autopsy report is private and not available to the public, meaning it's another piece of the cover-up. However, the reality is, because the overseeing doctor concluded that he died from natural causes and not from a drug overdose or foul play, the report remains private. Had he concluded otherwise, then it would become public record. Ultimately, this has more to do with Tennessee law rather than a carefully arranged cover-up. Then there's the issue with the medical examiner's report, in which some people claim Elvis wrote himself. Even a 1991 TV special got a handwriting expert to claim this as fact, but when I look at both documents cited, I don't see a connection. It looks like two different people to me. And this brings us to the funeral, which happened 2 days later on August 18th. Now, there's a theory that a wax dummy was used in place for the open casket viewing, and this comes from a photo of Elvis on the cover of the September 6th issue of the National Enquirer. A lot of people thought it didn't look like Elvis of the 70s, but more like a 1950s Elvis with a weird pug nose. Those that were at the viewing say Elvis looked really bad in the casket, and that he might have even been wearing a wig, which contrasts with the photo. Most likely there was some photo manipulation done, and or they faked the photo using a picture of a younger Elvis. We'll never really know the full story since the original negative was conveniently destroyed in a fire. Also, with over 1,000 people in attendance, you would think one of them would notice a wax dummy. There were also reports that the 10 pallbearers had trouble lifting and moving the coffin, which supposedly weighed 900 pounds, much more than a normal casket. This led some to speculate that it was fitted with some sort of cooling system, which made it heavier. This system was used to keep the wax body from melting under the warm Memphis sun. However, when I look at the footage of the funeral, the pallbearers look more like they are struggling to walk as a group. Plus, Elvis's longtime friend and road manager Joe Esposito said the casket weighed 900 pounds because it was made of solid copper. And finally, we have the curious case of his gravestone spelling his middle name with 2 A's when his birth certificate has it listed with 1 A. Many see this misspelling as another clue, but I think it has more to do with his grieving father respecting his son's wishes. According to Marty Lacker, Elvis's close friend and co-best man at his wedding, in 1966 he asked Elvis why he spelled his name with 1 A. Elvis replied it's because his parents weren't great at spelling when he was born. Elvis then turned to his father and said, "From now on, I want my middle name to be spelled with 2 A's, just like in the Bible." His 1972 divorce documents confirm his legal name status with 2 A's. And this brings us to the last component, arguably the most infamous and entertaining, the Elvis sightings. Now, I don't have time to cover them all, but I'll go through the most well-known, starting with the earliest, in which someone claims to have seen Elvis at the Memphis International Airport on the same day he died. Elvis reportedly bought a ticket to Buenos Aires and went by the name of John Burroughs, which is what he used when checking into hotels to avoid attention. The only problem is the Memphis airport did not offer flights to Argentina at that time. There's no record of a passenger by the name of John Burroughs, and there's no source witness. The next big sighting occurred on a New Year's Day tour of Graceland in 1978. Mike Joseph snapped a pic of the pool house, and only after getting the film developed did he notice what looks to be Elvis sitting in the pool house. It was later determined to be a photo of Elvis's security guard and touring wardrobe manager Al Strata, but that didn't stop the photo from making the rounds within Elvis fan circles and probably fueled the conspiracy theory around the US. Also in 1978, the book Orion was released, and it was about how a famous Southern singer faked his death. The singer character was very clearly based on Elvis. In fact, many of the details of this conspiracy theory come from this book, and it even inspired singer Jimmy Ellis to don a mask and call himself Orion. His first album was released in 1979 titled Reborn, with a cover featuring a very Elvis-looking guy in a coffin. Because he sounded so similar to Elvis, this caused some listeners to believe he really was Elvis, and of course his record label did nothing to stop such notions, as it was good for record sales. Eventually he became his own artist, releasing several more albums throughout the 80s and even scored a few hit singles for himself on the country charts. 1981 saw the emergence of the singer Sylvie Nora, or Elvis Aaron, spelled backwards. This included a book, an album, and even a videotape of the back of Sylvie, which was meant to be proof that Elvis was still alive, but now going by Sylvie to avoid attention. In reality, Sylvie was just a really good Elvis voice impersonator by the name of David Darlock. Then in 1984, a photo was published showing Muhammad Ali with Jesse Jackson, and lo and behold, in the background is Elvis Presley. Now, this wouldn't be that far-fetched if Elvis was alive, since he and Muhammad Ali were friends. But the truth was, the man in the photo was Ali's agent, Larry Kolb. 1988 saw the release of the book Is Elvis Alive, bundled with a cassette featuring an exclusive interview with someone claiming to be Elvis. In truth, the voice on the tape was David Darlock again. As for the book, this was really a rebranded version of the earlier book, Orion, with the same ideas, but now in direct reference to Elvis. Regardless, the book became a huge seller and led the author to give TV interviews on Geraldo and Larry King Live, further popularizing the conspiracy theory. Also in 1988, a string of sightings occurred in the Kalamazoo region of Michigan, beginning with a report of Elvis at a Burger King. These sightings became a lucrative subject matter for the supermarket tabloid Weekly World News, whose outlandish coverage turned the conspiracy into a phenomenon in league with UFOs and Bigfoot sightings. But I would say the peak of the conspiracy theory revolves around two live TV specials, one in 1991 titled The Elvis Files, and the 92 sequel, The Elvis Conspiracy. Both were hosted by actor Bill Bixby, who worked with Elvis on 2 movies. Both of the specials featured interviews with experts, authors, eyewitnesses, and even had some glorious over-the-top reenactments. And even today, the conspiracy persists, even in strange places, such as the 1990 film Home Alone. A recent theory claimed the bearded gentleman in line behind Catherine O'Hara was Elvis, but he was later identified as Gary Grote. Then in 2016, this footage of a man on the grounds of Graceland surfaced, leading some to believe this was Elvis hiding in plain sight. Of course, this later turned out to be an employee of Graceland. So yeah, I think it's pretty clear that Elvis is dead and not coming back anytime soon. I think back in the late 80s and early 90s, most people accepted the fact that Elvis died, but the books and TV shows selling the conspiracy, as well as all the Elvis sightings, gave some sense of hope. And I think that hope is what fueled the conspiracy. I mean, who wouldn't want Elvis to come back for one last tour? But even if you're still convinced Elvis is alive, these sightings can't go on forever. Even if he lived to 100, we only have a few more years of plausible sightings. In the end, I believe Elvis really left the building in 1977. As you may already know, Elvis's motto was taking care of business, and that's exactly what Manscaped is all about. They are experts in men's grooming. From looking your best to feeling your best, they offer great products for taking care of your business downstairs and upstairs, including the Weed Whacker. This is the best ear and nose hair trimmer I have ever used, but their flagship model is the Lawnmower 3.0. This nimble little trimmer is the perfect solution for those hard to reach, sensitive areas. It's got skin safe tech and LED light, it's waterproof, and the battery lasts up to 90 minutes. Trust me, if this was around when Elvis was alive, he would be using it. And Manscaped can also help you stay smelling your best with their signature cologne, Refined. This has woodsy notes and an overall fresh, clean scent that I really love. It's not overpowering at all. Right now you can help support the channel and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code VinylRewind at manscaped.com. That's right, 20% off with free shipping. Just follow the link below and use the code VinylRewind at checkout. Alright everyone, that will do it for today. Be sure to let me know what you think of the conspiracy theory. Have you seen Elvis? Let me know with a comment below. Until then, thank you all so much for watching. I'm your Vinyl Geek, and I'll catch you on the flip side. You know, it's funny, when I was looking through the White House files from when Elvis stopped by, one of the funniest things I found was a couple of ideas that the White House came up with on how best to work with Elvis. One was an hour-long TV special where Elvis would sing popular songs and then translate the lyrics to educate parents on the drug and anti-government themes present. And another idea was having him record an album at the Federal Narcotic Rehabilitation and Research Facility with the theme being Get High on Life. I can't help but think this was inspired by Johnny Cash's Live at Folsom Prison album. Sadly, none of these ideas came to fruition. Anyway, thanks again for watching. If you haven't already, check out this playlist for more music conspiracy theories, or watch my video on my Elvis decanters over on my other channel, Mixing with the Geek.